Today, Steph Curry stands as the pinnacle of point guards in the NBA, arguably the greatest to ever grace the court. But rewind back to 2009, and not everyone was convinced he had what it took to thrive in the league. Concerns loomed about his physical stature, standing at a slight 6'2" and slender. He didn't fit the mold of a traditional NBA player. Moreover, beyond the Carolinas, few had even heard of Davidson College, let alone knew its location on a map. However, there was one undeniable consensus about Curry: his shooting ability. He showcased remarkable accuracy, hitting 41% from three while attempting nearly 10 shots per game across his collegiate career. It was during the NCAA tournament that Curry's name exploded onto the national scene. Leading the 10th seed Davidson, he delivered sensational performances, notably dropping 40 points and sinking 8 threes against Gonzaga. His dominance continued, propelling Davidson past Georgetown and Wisconsin. Although they eventually fell to Kansas in the Elite Eight, Curry's heroics had captivated the basketball world. Before his NBA MVP accolades, Curry was renowned as the face of a March Madness Cinderella story. Following a record-setting sophomore season where he established the NCAA record for made threes, Curry entered his junior year as a leading scorer in college basketball. His standout performances, including a career-high 44 points against future top draft pick Blake Griffin, solidified his status as a projected top 10 pick. Despite the opportunity to declare for the NBA draft, Curry opted for a senior season, aiming to further enhance his draft stock. Yet, questions persisted. Who was this Davidson sensation, and where would he fit in the NBA landscape? Comparisons to greats like Steve Nash and Mike Bibby floated around, leaving scouts and analysts intrigued. As the draft approached, speculation swirled about which team would secure Curry's talents. The Minnesota Timberwolves held the 5th pick, a position that seemed tailor-made for a guard of Curry's caliber. But on draft night, the Timberwolves made a stunning move, selecting not one but 2 point guards, Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn, passing over Curry entirely. The draft night snub fueled Curry's determination, but it also marked a pivotal moment in NBA history, altering the league's trajectory and paving the way for Curry's legendary career. And then Curry's phone finally rings. He's anticipating the voice of Knicks GM Donnie Walsh, but it's not him. With the 7th pick in the 2009 NBA draft, the Golden State Warriors select Stephen Curry from Davidson College. It took Curry some time to adjust to the NBA grind, but by the second half of his rookie season, he found his groove. He scored 30 or more points 8 times, the most of any rookie that year, and the most since LeBron James and Carmelo Anthony 6 years earlier. He finished second in Rookie of the Year voting, just behind Tyreke Evans, averaging 18 points, 5 rebounds, and 6 assists, while shooting 44% from three. In his second season, we saw a similar level of production. Curry had proven that, at the very least, his college shooting translated to the pros, giving hope for another undersized sharpshooter taking the NCAA by storm, Jimmer Fredette. Jimmer Fredette, are you kidding me? The only problem: did anyone want to be compared to Curry coming out of college? Sure, he was a great shooter. Sure, he was exciting. But being compared to Curry in 2011 meant something vastly different than it means today. No one was really looking at each draft for signs for the next Steph Curry. At least, not yet. By the end of Jimmer's senior season in 2010, he had emerged from being a relative unknown to a household name, leading the country in scoring, shooting so far beyond the three-point line they created a new name for this area of the court: Jimmer Range. Torching Arizona as he was preparing for the draft. We would hear comparisons to various players, but one stuck out above the rest: Steph Curry. The Curry comparison made sense. They both burst onto the scene from mid-majors after not receiving much high school buzz whatsoever. They navigated their school's deep postseason runs, had very similar physical profiles, but the most compelling similarity was the pair's exceptional ability to shoot the ball. Not just that, but at range and volume. College basketball had never seen anything like it outside of these two. Fredette finished as the NCAA scoring champion in his final season, but that's not all. They finished with nearly identical averages. Fredette averaged 29, Curry averaged 28.6. They both shot 45% from the field. Fredette shot 40 from three, Curry 39. The knock on Fredette was also nearly identical: his lack of defense and athletic ability. But just like Curry, that wasn't going to stop him from hearing his name called on draft night. The Milwaukee Bucks select Jimmer Fredette. Shortly after, he was rerouted in a trade to Sacramento, a short 90-minute drive from Curry and the Warriors in Oakland. Over a decade before the light beam became the coolest trend in the league, the Kings had Jimmer. How about Jimmer? His jersey sold out, and the selection reinvigorated a Kings fan base that nearly lost its team to Anaheim just weeks earlier. Coincidentally, the first time fans would get the chance to see Fredette offered them a chance to directly compare him to Curry. On December 17, 2011, the Sacramento Kings hit the hardwood for the first time since April, taking on Steph and the Warriors in their first preseason match. Fredette couldn't have asked for a better debut. He finished the first quarter shooting 1 for 2, nailing a 3. Curry started off equally warm, going 3 for 5 for 7 points. But then Fredette marched back in the second quarter, posting his own 3 for 5 quarter. By halftime, they were battling it out, each already in double figures, 10 for Fredette, 12 for Curry. But Golden State led by a healthy 19 points. The two continued exchanging shots for the rest of the game. By the end of the third quarter, Fredette was the leading scorer of the game with 18 points to Curry's 15. Unfortunately for Fredette, after a pair of key free throws, he would go scoreless for the rest of the way. Meanwhile, Curry added 7 more points to his total, fending off the Kings' comeback and finishing with 22. But Fredette's 21 was likely the most impressive outing of the night. Despite the loss, he provided early hope that he could replicate Curry. After all, he finished 4 from 6 from 3, while Curry managed just 1 for 4. The rest of Fredette's career falls somewhere between a punchline and tragedy. Over the next 3 years, the two would face off a total of 8 times. Fredette averaged less than 10 minutes, 5 points, and less than an assist. Curry, on the other hand, averaged 19 points and 9 assists, shooting 44% from 3. Just 15 days after Fredette would drop his career high for the Kings in 2014, his contract was bought out by Sacramento. He then bounced around between a few different teams in the G League affiliates before heading overseas. The 2012 season was a difficult one for Curry. He finished playing just 26 games after an injury forced him out for the rest of the year. During the season, the Warriors seriously considered trading him to the Bucks, before Milwaukee's doctors stepped in and nixed the deal because of his injuries. In the offseason, the Warriors were faced with a difficult decision. Curry was extension eligible and a decent performer when he played, but the Warriors were once again headed to the lottery, and the concerns over his ankles were serious. Meanwhile, another gifted scorer from a small school, who was making waves before the draft, Damian Lillard, was virtually unknown heading into his senior year at Weber State. But after dropping 25 points, 4 assists, and 5 rebounds while shooting 40% from 3, that was no longer the case. His scouting report was all over the place. There were a lot of different comparisons: Jay Williams, Jared Jack, and yes, Steph Curry. The 6th pick in the 2012 NBA draft, the Portland Trail Blazers select Damian Lillard of Weber State University. When Curry and Lillard would meet for the first time on January 11, 2013, coming for the likely Rookie of the Year, Damian Lillard is in the building. Portland, one of the hottest teams in the NBA, taking on the Warriors tonight. The Warriors would come out on top, but that wasn't the headline that came out of that game. It was Lillard's 37 points, shooting 7 for 12 from 3-point range. In fact, he was the only Blazer starter to finish with a plus net rating. Curry, on the other hand, finished with 22 points and 12 rebounds, the only Warrior starter that finished with a negative net rating. The game left some believing that Lillard would one day surpass Curry as a basketball player, but that also goes to show you Curry's status in 2012. He was just 2 years away from his first championship, but his injury history and lack of play experience made the future nearly impossible to imagine. Now, Lillard has actually been one of the few to hold his own in the point guard duels with Curry throughout his career. In actuality, he's probably the closest thing we've seen to Curry. Both playing in the West, they matched up a total of 24 times. Lillard's averaged 27 and 6, shooting 42% from 3. Impressive, but not quite Curry's 32 and 7, shooting 45% from 3. When we go back to 2012, front offices weren't looking to unearth the next Steph Curry in the draft, but that was quickly changing. The 2013 season marked a turning point in his career. Slowly, he was putting to bed concerns that his ankles couldn't hold up over the course of an 82-game season. He missed just 4 games all year. Even better, they made it to the playoffs, defeating an upstart Denver Nuggets team in round 1. They would then face the Spurs and fall in 6 games. Things really started clicking for him in the next season. He averaged 24 and 9, both career highs. He earned his first All-Star nod, and the Warriors won 51 games, the most since Curry's arrival. In 2009, in the first round, they would face a 57-win Los Angeles Clippers team who would ultimately defeat them in 7 games. With that early exit, questions began swirling. Could the Warriors really win with a Curry-Clay backcourt? Was Mark Jackson the answer at coach? And evidently, the front office had those same fears. The team nearly pulled off a swap involving Klay Thompson and Timberwolves star Kevin Love. That summer, they would fire Jackson, replacing him with first-time head coach Steve Kerr. During the 2015 season, they won 67 games behind Curry's 24 and 8. They made light work of their conference playoff opponents, dropping just 3 total games. In addition, Curry was crowned regular season MVP and earned a final showdown with LeBron James and the Cavaliers. 6 games later, it's over. The championship is back in the Bay for the first time in 40 years. His star status would not stop rising. The Warriors won an NBA record 73 games in 2016, and Curry led the league in scoring with 30 points, earning his 2nd straight MVP and the first unanimous one the league had ever seen. In the finals, they would meet the Cavaliers for a rematch. This time, though, the Cavaliers emerged victorious. Even though Curry fell short of a second ring, scouts were actively looking for the next it player, and for Buddy Hield, the timing could not have been better. Now, comparing Hield to one of the 10 best players of all time seems ridiculous today, but in 2016, he had as much upside to be the next Curry as anyone. He lit up his senior year at Oklahoma, making 147 threes, only 15 behind Curry's record set in 2008. In April, he took home the Wooden Award, averaging 25 and 6, leading the country in three-point shooting. The comparison to Curry was by no means a consensus. Some thought comparing the two was ludicrous, and it definitely wasn't perfect. But the search for the next Steph was in full swing, and this was as close as talking heads were going to get to that. With the 6th pick in the 2016 NBA draft, the New Orleans Pelicans select Buddy Hield from Freeport, Bahamas, and the University of Oklahoma. Not too long after, the two would finally get a chance to meet on the hardwood. October 27, 2016, Hield's Pelicans host the Warriors in the second game of the season. To call it a disappointing debut might be an understatement. Hield had had as many turnovers as points, 2 of each. He went 0 for 6 from the field and 0 for 2 from deep. Curry, meanwhile, was just settling into the season. He put up 23 points on 19 shots, including 4 threes, to give the Warriors a 122-114 win. They would match up again just a week later, and Hield played a lot better. He had 4 of his 10 shots for 9 points and hauled in 6 rebounds. But Curry also rose to the challenge. He exploded for 46 points. Not just that, he did this. Since then, the two have faced off a total of 15 times. Hield's average is solid, 16, shooting 39% from 3. Curry, 30 points, shooting 46% from 3. But luckily for Buddy, the Curry comparisons died long ago. Few were bold enough to mention the two in the same breath after those first few encounters, something that proved to be a good idea. Now, to be fair, no one was touching Curry's status by the mid-2010s. By 2017, people were running out of the way to praise the Warriors. Kevin Durant joined the team, and the Warriors won 67 games, and Curry was as good as ever, averaging 25, shooting 41% from beyond the arc. That postseason, the Warriors only need 17 games to win an NBA title, 1 game shy of a perfect postseason. But disaster nearly struck the following season. Down the stretch, Curry suffered a knee sprain, one that actually kept him out for the first round of the playoffs. But luckily, that didn't matter. He returned in the second round, and the Warriors went 11-4 from that point on, defeating the Cavs for back-to-back rings. Steph was now untouchable, a legend, not only as one of the best players in the league, but as the best shooter the game had ever seen. And after the whiffs of Fredette and Hield, surely no one out of college would be compared to Curry again, right? Well, coming out of the University of Oklahoma in 2018, one comparison followed freshman Trey Young everywhere he went. While Trey Young made his first shot when Curry and him played against each other, Curry responded, and he responded big. Curry finished the quarter with 18 points, shooting 6 for 7 from the field, which is not only more than Young, but more than the entire Hawks team. Curry seemed determined to put any of these comparisons to rest as soon as possible. Trey Young couldn't have imagined a worse start. He committed turnovers on 2 of Atlanta's first 3 possessions and missed his first 2 shot attempts. By the end of the first quarter, the Warriors led 34-17. Following the contest, the 2-time MVP would pump the brakes on comparisons, explaining to reporters, "My name is Stephen Curry, and his name is Trey Young. 2 different players." So since that game, the Curry-Young comps have quieted down considerably. Curry's just not an incomparable shooter to Young. They are much different players entirely. If you like this video, please subscribe and like the video. I'll see y'all in the next one.